Hare Krishna devotees, thank you for making the time today. Let's start with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. Okay, so we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto today. That's a series that temple devotees are reading. So we're in 9th canto, 9th chapter, and we're at text number 14. Yeah, 14 and 15. We'll read. Adhiksha Prabhu, 15 doesn't have purport. We're supposed to read next verse also because of that. Okay, sure. Yeah, then we'll read 14, 15, and 16 and 17 are together. We'll read them together. Okay. 9th canto, 9th chapter, text number 14. 9, 9, 14. The chapter title is The Dynasty of Anshuman. Okay. Nahi etat paramacharyam Swadunya yadi hoditam Ananta charanam bhoja Presutaya bhavachiddaha Nahi etat paramacharyam Swadunya yadi hoditam Ananta charanam bhoja Presutaya bhavachiddaha Nahi etat paramacharyam Swadunya yadi hoditam Ananta charanam bhoja Presutaya bhavachiddaha. Okay, someone wants to read? Nahi etat paramacharyam Swadunya yadi hoditam Ananta charanam bhoja Presutaya bhavachiddaha. Nahi etat paramacharyam Swadunya yadi hoditam Ananta charanam bhoja Presutaya bhavachiddaha. Nahi etat paramacharyam Swadunya yadi hoditam Ananta charanam bhoja Presutaya bhavachiddaha. Okay, we'll read that word for word meaning. Not. He, indeed. Etad, this. Param, ultimate. Ascharyam, wonderful thing. Swardunya, of the water of the Ganges. Yet, which. Iha, herewith. Uditam, has been described. Ananta, of the Supreme Lord. Charana Amboja, from the lotus of the feet. Presutaya, of that which emanates. Bhavachiddaha, which can liberate from material bondage. So we'll read the translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Because Mother Ganges emanates from the lotus toe of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ananta Deva, she is able to liberate one from material bondage. Therefore, whatever is described here with about her is not at all wonderful. Purport. It has actually been seen that anyone who regularly worships Mother Ganges simply by bathing in her water keeps very good health and gradually becomes a devotee of the Lord. This is the effect of bathing in the water of the Ganges. Bathing in the Ganges is recommended in all Vedic Shastras, and one who takes to this path will certainly be completely freed from all sinful reactions. The practical example of this is that sons of Mara Sagara went to the heavenly planets when water from the Ganges merely touched the ashes of their burnt bodies. So, text student, we'll also read 15, 16, and 17, and then we'll discuss. Text 15. Sannivesha manoyasmin Shraddhaya munayo malaha Traigunyam dushtyajam hitva sadyo yata tadatmatam. Translation. Great sages, completely freed from material lusty desires, devote their minds fully to the service of the Lord. Such persons are liberated from material bondage without difficulty, and they become transcendently situated, acquiring the spiritual quality of the Lord. This is the glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 16-17. Suto Bhagirata Jagne Tasya Nabho Paro Bhavat Sindhu Deepas Tatas Tasmad Ayutayut Tato Bhavat Ritu Parno Nalasako Yosva Vidyam Ayam Nalat Datvasya Hridayam Kasnai Sarvakama Sutatsitam. Sri Sri Radha Mother ki jai, Nita Gaur Sundar ki jai, Jagannath Baldev Subhadra ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Translation and purport for verse number 16 and 17 by Sri Prabhupada. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Bhagirath had a son named Shruta, whose son was Nabha. This son was different from the Nabha previously described. Nabha had a son named Sindhudipa. From Sindhudipa came Ayutayu, and from Ayutayu came Rituparna, who became a friend of Nalaraja. Rituparna taught Nalaraja the art of gambling, and Nalaraja gave Rituparna lessons in controlling and maintaining horses. The son of Rituparna was Sarvakama. Purport. Gambling is also an art. Kshatriyas are allowed to exhibit talent in the art of gambling. By the grace of Krishna, the Pandavas lost everything by gambling. Interesting. By the grace of Krishna, the Pandavas lost everything by gambling and were deprived of their kingdom, wife, family, and home because they were not expert in the gambling art. In other words, a devotee may not be expert in materialistic activities. It is therefore advised in the Shastra that materialistic activities are not at all suitable for the living entities, especially the devotees. The devotee should therefore be satisfied to eat whatever is sent as prasada by the Supreme Lord. A devotee remains pure because he does not take to sinful activities such as gambling, intoxication, meat eating, and illicit sex. Okay, we'll read the translation of 14 one more time. Because, maybe I'll read the 14 and 15 translations. Because Mother Ganges emanates from the lotus toe of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Anantadeva, she is able to liberate one from material bondage. Therefore, whatever is described herewith about her is not at all wonderful. 15th translation. Great sages, completely freed from material lusty desires, devote their minds fully to the service of the Lord. Such persons are liberated from material bondage without difficulty, and they become transcendently situated, acquiring the spiritual quality of the Lord. This is the glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, let's see. So we'll offer prayers to the previous acharyas to give us mercy, and so we can share something of value. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnanajana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Supadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamanam Sri Guru Vaishnavamcha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatanitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamcha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Pushbanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kupa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Rumpa Swami Nitramani Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitramani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nivisheshunavadi Paschadestani. Okay, so a lot of content in these verses, but we'll try to cover some of them at least. So, first I'll briefly give the context because many of us are not attending the Bhagavatam classes every day here. So, brief context. We know Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam has 10 topics like described in second canto, 10th chapter, 10th chapter. One such topic. These 10 topics are there in every Mahapurana, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the best of all Mahapuranas. So out of the 10 topics, one of them is called Manvantara. So Manvantara means the reign of Manu. So like we know in one day of Brahma, it's also called Kalpa. There are 1,000 Divya Yugas, and each Divya Yuga means 4 Yuga cycle. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So like this one day of Brahma is ruled by 14 different Manus. And each Manu rules for about 71 Divya Yugas. So, in the 8th canto is primarily, topic of the 8th canto was primarily Manvantara. So, Sukadeva Goswami is describing Parikshit Maharaj, all the different Manus, how did they rule, and then within each Manvantara, how did the Supreme Lord appear, and also 5 other personalities are also described. And then what is prominent pastimes done like that. Primarily 8th canto describes about Gajendra Moksha pastime, and then Churning of the Milk Ocean, Samudra Manthan pastime, and then later on about Vamana Deva appearance like that. So the primary. So after Sukadeva Goswami completes the description in the beginning of the 9th canto, because while he's describing all the Manvantras, he doesn't go into spotlight and details for each Manvantara fully, Sukadeva Goswami. So the Manvantara that we are in is the 8th Manvantara, 7th Manvantara, right? 7th Manvantara, Vaivasvata Manvantara. So when he's describing your Vaivasvata Manvantara, it caught attention of Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit Maharaj wanted to know more details about Vaivasvata Manvantara. He wants to know all what happened in the ruling of this kingdom like that. That's how 9th canto starts in the first chapter. And then Sukadeva Goswami wants to describe about Vaivasvata Manvantara. So to describe that, he starts with the whole, how did Vaivasvata Manu come? His previous thing also he discussed briefly in a couple of verses. Basically, originally from Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, we know Lord Brahma came from his navel lotus flower came. From there, Lord Brahma came. And from Brahma, Marichi was his son, one of his sons. Brahma had several stages. Marichi was one of his sons. And from Marichi, Kasyapa was one of his sons. And Kasyapa has many wives. One of them is Aditi. From Aditi, many demigods come. One such demigod is called Vivaswan. Vivaswan is also the name of the sun god that we have currently. So we hear from Bhagavad Gita 4th chapter that Lord Krishna personally told to Vivaswan, sun god like that. And he tells it to Manu. Manu tells it to Ikshvaku, like that is described in Bhagavad Gita. So same line is being described here. That Vivaswan, who is the sun god, his son is Vaivasvata Manu. His name also is called Shraddha Deva. So Vaivasvata Manu has one daughter and 10 sons. Actually, it goes in sequence. First, he gets one daughter, and then there's a whole story around it. Daughter becomes a son, man, and then man becomes a female. Himalaya's male, like that. Ninth canto, one of the good thing for devotees is many devotees like the pastimes. So there are lots of pastimes in ninth canto. So every chapter has many pastimes going on. So Vaivasvata Manu has one daughter and 10 sons. So now within the 10 sons, so whole section now. So if you notice, Vaivasvata Manu is son of Vivaswan, we said. Vivaswan is from sun god, right? So now basically what is being described is a sun dynasty now. So almost half of the ninth canto is describing Surya Vamsa or sun dynasty. And the next half describes moon dynasty or Chandra Vamsa. So Surya Vamsa, we know prominent personality in the Surya Vamsa is Lord Sri Rama himself. That is coming up in the next couple of chapters. And then in moon dynasty, we know Lord Krishna personally came. So this is all gearing up towards 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam pastimes of Krishna. That's where it's going towards. So in the Surya Vamsa, Vaivasvata Manu, in all the previous chapters, the dynasty of Vaivasvata Manu is described further. So for example, second chapter, first six sons of Vaivasvata Manu, and what did they do, is described. And third chapter, Saryati, another son. Like that fourth chapter, Nabaga. And then Nabaga had a son called Nabaga, and his son was Ambrish Maharaj. Many of us know Ambrish Maharaj. So Ambrish Maharaj's pastime is detailedly described in a couple of chapters. And then 4 and 5 chapters. And then Ikshvaku was one of the sons. So that's where it goes. Remember, Krishna says, I described to Vivaswan, Vivaswan described to Manu, Manu described Ikshvaku. That Ikshvaku is here again, one of the sons of Manu, Vaivasvata Manu. So Ikshvaku dynasty is described from the 6th chapter onwards. We are in the 9th chapter now. Ikshvaku had that whole lineage is long, but essentially after it describes many kings coming in that dynasty, so he finally lands at king. His name is Sagara. That is where he is prominent. So Sagara had 60,000 sons. So and then he was doing I'm briefly describing the context how it became here. So he does a horse sacrifice, Ashwamedha sacrifice. So we hear about Ashwamedha sacrifice many times in Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures also. So he performs Ashwamedha sacrifice, and then that time the Indra steals the horse of the sacrifice horse, and he keeps it near Kapila, who is in the lower planetary system. So then one of the son of Sagara is Asamanjasa. Asamanjasa has another son. That means Sagara's grandson now. His name is Anshuman. So he is the one who is instrumental to find the horse. That horse is there. He goes to all everywhere he cannot find it. So he goes to lower planet system, and he finds the horse near the Kapil Dev. So he tries with the different austerities to get to please Kapil Dev, but he is not successful. So then Dilipa also tries. Oh, sorry. That is about austerities to get Ganges, right? Yeah. So Anshuman is able to get the horse from Kapil Dev. But then Kapil Dev also gives instruction that before Anshuman, the other 60,000 sons of Sagara, they were trying to offend Kapil Dev. Because the horse is there with Kapil Dev, they think that Kapil Dev stole the horse. They mistake it like that. So because of their own offense, they get burnt to ashes. So this is a slight distinction. Some people think that because Kapil Dev was angry, he looked at them, that's why he got burnt ashes. That's not true. They got burnt to ashes because of their own offense only. That's what is described in Bhagavatam clearly. So then now their son, Anshuman, Asamanjasa's son we discussed, Anshuman, he gets the horse after pleasing Kapil Dev. He gets the horse from him. Kapil Dev also instructs him, but to relieve all these 60,000 sons of Sagara, we need to get Ganges water. That is the only way they can get back their life like that. So now Anshuman tried with austerities, but is not successful to get Ganges from the spiritual world. And then next Dilipa tried, who is the son of Anshuman. He also did not succeed. And then next Bhagirath, who is the son of Dilipa. He's like a great grandson like that of Sagara. So Bhagirath tried, and finally he pleased Ganga Devi with his austerities, and Ganga Devi appears before him, and he says, "I'm pleased with your austerities. I'm going to appear, but I have two concerns," like that she describes. One of the concern is when I'm coming with full force from the spiritual world, there should be a male who can control my waves. Otherwise, I will go down to lower planetary systems all the way to Rasatala, like that. That is one concern she raises. And second concern she raises is that I'm so pure. So anybody who takes bath in my water, they'll get purified of sinful reactions. But then everybody will deposit, after understanding this, everybody deposit their sinful reactions. So what will happen to me, like that? So that's a beautiful purport Prabhupada writes, that only Krishna can clear everything of everybody's sin and is not affected also, like that. Like fire, when you put something in fire, it consumes it. Nothing happens to fire. Like that, only Krishna can do that. So then these are two concerns she raises to Bhagirath. This is what happened in the previous verses of this chapter. So then Bhagirath addresses to both the concerns. So basically, one of them is Lord Shiva can carry Ganga on his head when she's coming with full force like that. That's one thing. Second aspect is that sinful reactions, he said, right? Everybody will deposit sinful reactions. He says, when pure devotees take bath in the Ganges, because of their purity of bhakti, then they will burn away all the sinful reactions from whatever Ganges is there. So Ganges will become pure again, like that. So they assure her. So that is the power of pure devotee we can see here. So this verse is glorifying Ganges, but pure devotees' glories are even more greater, like that. That comes regularly in Bhagavatam. So pure devotees, then Ganges says, okay, I'll come, then Lord Shiva needs to come, like that. Then Bhagirath performs another thousands of years of sacrifice again to please Lord Shiva. And then Lord Shiva comes, and then Lord Shiva accepts Ganges water on the head, and then releases, like that. The pastime goes on. Basically, Janumuni it disturbs Janumuni's meditation when he was there, and then Janumuni takes all the water into his palm and drinks it like this. So Ganges is not there anymore. Then Bhagirath has to perform sacrifice again to please him, and then finally he accepts, and Janumuni releases from his ear. That's why Ganges' name has come as Jahnavi. And Mahavishnu Swami was there. I think we were discussing this recently, few weeks ago. I think that all went away. But now, what happened is, now just previous verse, 13th verse, when the Ganges water came, actually Bhagirath goes in a chariot very swiftly, and Ganges follows him, and then he goes to the place where all his ancestors are there, would burn to ashes. Ganges water touches the ashes of the sons of Sagar Maharaj, and they all get elevated to heavenly planets. That's the glory of Ganges, Mother Ganges. That is the context in which this verse is coming. So now we'll see this verse again. Now this verse is coming. Why did Mother Ganges become so glorious? Because Mother Ganges emanates from the lotus toe of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Anantadeva. She is able to liberate one from material bondage. Therefore, whatever is described here with about her is not at all wonderful. So this is a common theme that comes in Srimad Bhagavatam. Basically, anything that is related to Krishna, like pure devotees we discussed just now, who is related to Krishna, are so glorious because Supreme Lord is glorious. That's why anything and anyone is connected with Supreme Lord is also glorious. That thing is also glorious. So that's why this is nothing. Supreme Lord can do amazing, wonderful things. This is just one small portion like that. Glories of Mother Ganges, like that is being described here. So in the purport, Prabhupada writes, just by regularly worshipping Mother Ganges and simply bathing in the water of Ganges, disease also will go away. One becomes healthy and slowly become devotees also. Sinful reactions also will go away. Like that is being described. So one of the principles that devotees share in the context of this verse is that just by taking bath in Ganges, it's true, Mother Ganges is so glorious. But then to feel the effect of that, we need to have the right consciousness and faith also. Otherwise, we may go to different holy rivers and take bath, but we may not see effect also. So that means we need to have the right faith and right consciousness. That is why in the devotional service also we're cultivating the faith and the consciousness when we're doing devotional activities. So, for example, in this verse is described, Ganges is glorious because it touched the toe of lotus feet of Supreme Lord. How did that happen? That was described in the previous canto, 8th canto, Vamanadev. When Vamanadev appeared, he asked for 3 pieces of land from Bali Maharaj, right? So the third step when he put it, second step when he put it, he pierced over the material universe and through the coverings of the universe, and he went to spiritual world basically. So that when he pierced through the material universe, when he pierced it, outside the material universe, we know is Karnadaksha Vishnu, who is lying in the Karna ocean. So that Karna ocean came down to material world. So that's how Mother Ganges came basically. Mother Ganges is coming from spiritual world itself. So now when the water is coming down, it's touching the toes of Supreme Lord Vamanadev. That is what is being described here. So of course, there's another description in 5th canto also. Mother Ganges comes several places in Bhagavatam. In 5th canto, how the Mother Ganges came, it's also described. I don't remember all the sequence, but it primarily comes to within the material world. Dhruva planet is like Vaikuntha planet, spiritual world. So it comes to Dhruva planet, and from there it comes to heavenly planet where it's called Mandakini river, and then from there it comes to the Mount Sumeru, top of Mount Sumeru, and then it divides into 4 different tributes like that, Mother Ganges, and its different names are given based on wherever it's traveling. One such thing is going towards Bharata Varsha. So like that. So like that is described, and then within Bharata Varsha is Bharata Khanda also. So like that is coming. And the significance is all the holy rivers are in India. So that's why India is so glorious as a holy place. So and generally when sages and great devotees, and they're doing austerities or devotion service, they situate themselves close to a holy river. For example, Dhruva Maharaj was near Yamuna Devi, like that. And Maharaj Parikshit went to, at the end of his life, to perfect his life to the bank of the river Ganges. Like that is described. So holy rivers are very powerful. That's why holy places we go, we take dip in the holy river. But of course, Prabhupada makes a point in different purports in Bhagavatam. There is holy places we're going not to just take bath in holy river. We're going to listen from saintly personalities, pure devotees, so that way we'll get purified. To get their association, we're going to holy places. Because it's described, I think in 6th verse of this chapter, I think, it's described that, yeah, correct. So, holy pure devotees bathe in the water, the sinful reactions accumulated from other people will certainly be counteracted, right? So basically, holy places themselves are purified because of the holy people, saintly people, pure devotees. So that's the glories of pure devotees also is being described. So there are multiple angles to this verse. We first of all understood that Mother Ganges is very glorious. Glorious because of her relationship with Supreme Lord. That is one thing we understood. And second thing is, anything connected with Supreme Lord is glorious. That means any devotional activities, chanting the holy name, hearing, and paraphernalia of Supreme Lord, or anything is also glorious like that. That's another thing. So similarly, pastimes of Supreme Lord, they're not different from Supreme Lord. And holy name is not different from Krishna also. Like that we know. So anything connected with Supreme Lord is glorious. Similarly, pure devotees who carry Supreme Lord in their heart, they are also very glorious. When we say all of us having super soul, Paramatma in our heart, then how come pure devotees only are carrying Supreme Lord in their heart? Somebody might question. So pure devotees are well connected to super soul. They are actually worshipping Supreme Lord in his Bhagwan feature. So Supreme Lord in his Bhagwan feature, personal feature, he resides in the heart of the pure devotees, not only as Paramatma feature. So he gives them necessary direction. He gives them, in fact, as a surrender increases, he controls all the senses of a pure devotee. So that's that much glorious pure devotees are. He gives them the right guidance and whatever they need to do also. So that's why association of pure devotee is glorified in scriptures, because they carry Supreme Lord in their heart and they relate to Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord loves them and they love Supreme Lord. Actually, a couple of chapters ago, Amrish Maharaj Pastime came and Supreme Lord personally describes, my devotees are in my heart, and then I am in their heart. I don't know anything other than my devotees, like that he describes. So we can hear how glorious pure devotees are. That's why when Sadhu Sangha is described, it's primarily about association with pure devotees. And pure devotees, we hear from them. What are the characteristics of pure devotees? They're always engaged in unalloyed service to Krishna. That means they don't want to, their focus is fixed on Krishna only. They're not thinking about anything else. They're not thinking about some selfish motive, what I need to get, or what I need to get from family, like that. They're not thinking. They're thinking about only serving Krishna. How can I serve Krishna best? Even when they're talking to somebody, they're thinking about how can I serve that person best, like that. Even somebody is causing some pain to them, blaspheming them or criticizing them, or causing some hurt to them in some form, they're still thinking, how can I be of some service to them? There are many examples in scriptures. One such example is recently we discussed in Kartik month, Nalakubara and Manigriva. They were cursed by Narada Muni. Externally, it's a curse for them to become trees. But internally, it's described in that section. Narada Muni was considering, what is the best thing I can do service to them so that way they can get elevated. So that's why he gave them not only tree body to get rid of their pride, but also he gave them the opportunity to associate with Supreme Lord face to face, Krishna. And Krishna gave them benediction that they will engage in devotional service, and after this life, they'll go back to spiritual world also. What else we did? That's the saintly personalities. Even their curse is also blessing, like that. That's why any kind of association with pure devotee is purifying. So that means two main aspects. That means we need to take association with pure devotees we heard. That also means we should not offend the pure devotees also. We need to be cautious. So that is the other aspect. And any devotees for that matter. So pure devotees, how do we take association? One of the best ways we can take association of pure devotees is by hearing from them. What are they speaking? They're speaking from their heart, from their realization, and about Krishna and his devotees. So when they're speaking, we listen to them and we try to understand what they're trying to say. And then once we understand, we try to apply in our own life. So this is the best way to take association of pure devotees. That is called Vani Seva. That means hearing from pure devotees and applying the instructions in our life. So we should not forget applying the instruction. That's also important. So that is when you apply the instructions of pure devotees, we directly get their mercy. And when applying instruction, we are keeping in the mind that this pure devotee gave this instruction. Like that, when we apply, we're directly getting their mercy. That's the best way to get the mercy of pure devotee. More than going sitting next to them like that, this is the best way. Of course, that doesn't minimize Vapu Seva. That means personal Seva opportunity if you get to go closer to pure devotee and serve in whatever way. Definitely, that's also a good opportunity we should take benefit of. But out of the two, even personal Seva, we're serving according to their instruction, what they like, what is their mood. Not like, I like this, so I'll serve in this way. What they like, we'll serve in that way. So that's the glories of the pure devotees also we can understand from this verse. So now we'll go to the next verse. So we'll discuss a little bit more. So next verse is saying, great sages completely freed from material lusty desires. So great sages completely freed from material desires. They devote their minds fully to the service of the Lord. That means when our heart is completely free of material desires, then we can fully devote to Supreme Lord. That is one point coming in this verse. And then such persons are liberated from material bondage without difficulty, not much difficulty. And they become transcendently situated, acquiring the spiritual quality of the Lord. This is the glory of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So basically, when they devote themselves fully to Supreme Lord, then they're getting over all the material modes and they're directly situated in the transcendental mode, transcendental beyond the modes, transcendental spiritual nature of the Lord. And because Krishna is spiritual, when we associate with Krishna, who is spiritual, we'll also become spiritual. So that is the aspect. Like Prabhupada always says, when we're pure, Krishna is pure. When we associate with Krishna, we'll be pure. He gives the example of fire. So when we associate with fire, we get the light and heat. Similarly, when we associate with Krishna, we become purified like that. So holy name, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, is not different than Krishna. So when we associate with Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we get purified. That's the best way to get purified in this life. And when we hear, remember when we're talking about Mother Ganges, we said we need to have faith and the right consciousness to get purified, even when we take bath in the Ganges. So that means that faith and right consciousness will come when we hear the glories of Mother Ganges. So then we recognize the value and we develop the faith and we take bath in the right consciousness. Similarly, when we're doing devotional activities like chanting the holy name, we need to hear about the glories of the holy name. When we hear regularly about the glories of the holy name, read regularly about the glories of the holy name, we develop the faith toward chanting and we like to chant more. So that is the other aspect. Same thing with any other devotional activity. Let us say we want to cultivate the quality about hearing, from hearing. We want to focus on hearing. Then what we can do is we need to hear the glories of hearing first. And we need to hear glories of Srimad Bhagavatam first. Then we will be inclined to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll be inclined to hear from devotees like that. Then when we hear, we hearing with full open heart and a submissive way we hear, and that way it has the most potent effect on our heart, and then it will transform us. So like that, each devotional activity, we need to understand the glories of the activity, purpose of the activity, and then engage in that activity with a full understanding of the value, with full faith and the right consciousness to please Krishna. Because any devotional activity we're doing ultimately is to please Krishna. Even if it is for growing ourselves in spiritually, we need to remember this point that when I grow spiritually, does it please Krishna? Of course it does. Because he's waiting for millions of lifetimes for us to come back to him, to turn towards him, to serve him. So when he sees that we're making some efforts in devotional service to grow, then as we go in devotional service, what happens? We'll realize our eternal spiritual nature, that we are servant of Krishna and we want to serve Krishna. So that makes Krishna happy and makes us also happy. So that's why Krishna is very pleased when we do anything in devotional service to grow in devotional service, like that. When we understand that, then it's easy to see how we are pleasing Krishna. So like that, that is the bhakti principle, is to please Krishna in everything we do. That's the other aspect is coming here. And then in this verse, 15th verse, we also hear about when we become free from lusty desire, when we can place minds fully on the service of the Lord. So that means we're understanding lusty desires are not suitable, favorable for bhakti. So when we understand that, we make attempt to work on them. Because one of the offenses of the holy name is to maintain material attachments, even after understanding the glories of chanting of the holy name. So that means one of the material attachment is to engage in lust. Lust pulls us in different ways. Then we engage in it instead of ignoring it. So that means when the lusty desires come, we need to cultivate restraining from them, number one. So these are called lower desires or lower consciousness, lower pullings that we have. So all of us might have it, because until we get purified, we have some higher desires, we have some lower desires also. So when lower desires come at our stage, we can regulate them, we can try to restrict them. But how do we get the power and strength to do that? By doing devotion service. When we do devotion service, we get the spiritual strength to resist the lower temptations that we have. That is one thing. And then also, Shri Radha Mother ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai, Nitya Goswami ki jai. So by the spiritual strength, we get the strength to resist the lower desires, or lower temptations, or material desires, or lusty desires, like that. That is one thing. And second aspect, this spiritual strength is described in two ways. One is the taste that we have. As we do devotional activities with a right consciousness and faith, then we develop a higher taste. With that higher taste, we can resist the lower desires, because we're already getting higher happiness. Then we don't go for lower happiness, basically. That's why devotees try to keep themselves busy in devotional service, so that way there's no scope for any lower activities also. Prabhupada says, my devotees are so busy 24 hours of time, they don't have time for Maya, like that, Prabhupada used to say. So that is one strategy we can use until we get the higher taste. But then parallelly, while we're doing this, we're cultivating the higher taste also. So this, while cultivating higher taste, we're also sharpening our intelligence. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes how soul is the highest, then intelligence is next lower is mind, Next lower is senses. So in order to control senses, our mind, we need to sharpen our intelligence, and we need to engage in the activity that nourishes the soul. What nourishes the soul is devotion service. And what sharpens the intelligence is reading from scriptures and hearing from devotees from scriptures. That nourishes the intelligence. When we have sharpened intelligence, then we can say to no to mind temptations. Mind wants to do this, mind wants to do that, senses want to do this, senses want to do that. That sharpened intelligence will help us. Then intelligence is not all in all. It cannot handle all the time. So that's why we are also cultivating the higher taste. That gives the higher taste is cultivating the taste for the mind also. So that way we're strengthening the mind also with higher taste. So both intelligence and mind together will help us to control senses, will help us to engage the senses instead of in a wrong way, in a towards senses, towards service of Krishna, like that. So that's the other thing we can, bhakti itself will help us to overcome our lusty desires and engage in Krishna consciousness and Krishna service, like that. That's another important aspect from this verse. And then we'll get liberated from material bondage without difficulty if we engage in service of Krishna. That's the important aspect. So because previous verse we heard Ganges purifies us, that means I'll go sit next to Ganges and I'll do take bath every day. That's the only business I have. No. Devotees engage in direct service of Krishna. Because like we heard, Ganges, how is related to Krishna is purifying, chanting of the holy name, hearing, reading, deity worship, they are also equally purifying, or even rather more purifying. So that's why we take to those activities that are described by our acharyas as purifying for us and continue devotion service, and which will easily get us to perfection. Easily is a relative term. We find chanting of the holy name may be difficult. Sitting and hearing may be difficult. But it's a relative term in the sense that other parts of perfection are very, very hard to do. For example, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, they're very, very difficult to do. And they still need bhakti ultimately to get the perfection, even those parts also. So that's why bhakti is described as easy. It's in the relative sense. In the dhyana yoga part, you need to sit straight. I cannot sit straight for even for 1 minute. Forget about for years together, decades together. Like that. So many practices are there, right? So that is what we can get from 15th verse. I'm describing briefly because we have constraint of time also. So we'll go to briefly to the next verse. Next verse is 16th, 17th verse. Actually, this section starts a different section from here. It's going from away from Mother Ganges pastime and describing further descendants of Ikshvaku. Is going towards Lord Sri Ram coming up. That's where it's going towards. But a couple of interesting things Prabhupada describes in this purport, and it's there in verse also. That he describes, the verse is describing that gambling is an art. Prabhupada starts with the word, a sentence, gambling is also an art. So, and he also describes that Kshatriyas is a duty, and they exhibit the talent in the gambling, like that, art of gambling. And then he says, yeah. So that's how it starts. But he ends saying that devotees don't do gambling. He starts one place and ends up in another place. So it gives the right perspective for us. So we get the right understanding always. That is the power of a sadhu and guru. Basically, Shastras give different principles for different people. So with the different details, we might get swayed away by some detail, saying that, oh, see, gambling is art. I should take up gambling. Like that we might think. So sadhu and guru are there to help us understand the context of that verse and what is applicable for practicing devotees to take up, like that. So in this verse, Prabhupada is clearly saying gambling is not for the devotees. So now a couple of other interesting points Prabhupada makes in the purport. I like them. One is that by the grace of Krishna, Pandavas lost everything, they say. So that sounds contradictory. By the grace of Krishna, we should get all happiness, all material enjoyment also, we might think usually. People think that I'm worshipping Lord, dharma, artha, kama, like that, right? That means I do dharma to get artha, a lot of money. And I get artha to get a lot of sense enjoyment, do lots of sense enjoyment. That's how people approach religion as. Of course, devotees know better. So that's what you think. But why is it a mercy that they took it away? Because first of all, Pandavas were pure devotees, not like ordinary people. Pure devotees, when they're fully surrendered to Krishna. Krishna, according to the surrender of the devotee, he controls that much level in their life. We were discussing second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam also yesterday, I think. The point, Prabhupada makes the point, same point in the purport, that pure devotee senses fully controls. He gives them guidance and direction what to do also in their heart. So they're so connected to Supreme Lord because they're fully surrendered. And for us also, depending upon the service opportunity we get, and whatever ability we need, whatever strength we need, that also Krishna supplies it to us also, depending upon how much we are surrendering. If I want to do the service to please Krishna, not for my money or my fame or recognition, or I feel good, not only like that, for Krishna's pleasure, if I'm doing, then Krishna will empower us as devotees to do that service nicely. So that's what Krishna does. So in another way, for example, I have some ability or some resources that I don't need for the service at this time. Krishna thinks I'm suited for this particular service. For that service, I don't need particular resources. Then Krishna takes away that resource. So that also we should recognize. It's okay. Krishna knows what is best for us to do service. So Krishna gives what is needed for service. Krishna takes away whatever is not needed for service. Sometimes it so happens that devotees might develop pride in the heart. Devotees might develop attachment to money, attachment to enjoyment. So then they neglect the devotion service. But then Krishna knows our heart. In our heart, I am desiring to become devotee also, nice devotee also. But I have weakness of heart also. That's why I'm trying to enjoy also. So then Krishna sees that, oh, this devotee really wants to become devotee, but this is stopping him. Let me take away this enjoyment. So this money from him. So then he'll give us difficulty. Then we'll realize, oh, what am I doing? I'm doing this and this both. Let me focus on Krishna. I'll take shelter on Krishna. So then devotees become serious. Then if Krishna thinks that devotee needs more comfortable things in life to practice devotion nicely, he gives wealth again so that he can practice devotion again. So this is one of the common things I like in Bhagavatam that comes up in different cantos in different ways. Actually, I used to worry like Krishna will take away all my money, all the comforts that I have in my life, like that I used to worry all along. So this understanding helped me. So whatever resources I have, if I try to utilize in Krishna service to the best of my ability, of course I cannot use like pure devotee. They can use everything in Krishna service. But whatever I have the consciousness. I want to use everything in Krishna service, whatever I have, as much as possible. If I have the consciousness and I'm making endeavor, I'm making attempts, then Krishna will see, and Krishna will not take away my comforts. This is the conclusion I came to. so Krishna will keep whatever is needed to keep on serving. That is one point. But as devotees, we need to cultivate not how to stay in comfort zone all the time, even with Krishna's help. But what is the higher focus of my life? Higher focus of my life is to perfect my life. So that means whatever I need, whatever situation is happening, is it helping me to focus on Krishna more? Is it helping me to take shelter of Krishna more? Is it helping me to grow in Krishna consciousness more? Who is helping? That is mercy of Krishna. Like that, we'll see angle. Not something that is helping me to enjoy more, that is Krishna's mercy. Not like that. But something that is helping me to take shelter of Krishna is mercy of Krishna. Then when we see like that, then we can understand this statement of Prabhupada here. That by the grace of Krishna, Pandavas lost everything, like that. So we're slowly cultivating the higher focus that my goal of my life is to surrender to Krishna and serve Krishna. Then when we have that focus, then we're not so much worried about comforts only. I want to have, how do you make sure I have comfort like that? That will slowly reduce. As I get purified, that the detachment from material enjoyment increases, and then attachment to Krishna and devotional service and devotees increases also. So that's the other thing we can learn from this purport. So now Prabhupada says, devotees should therefore be satisfied. No, before that I want to mention one point, because there's misconception in this area. It is therefore advised in the Shastra that materialistic activities are not at all suitable for the living entities, especially the devotees. Actually, before that, one more point he makes. In other words, a devotee may not be expert in materialistic activities. I periodically discuss with one devotee who is very strong on this point. He thinks that We know out of the 26 qualities of devotee, devotee is expert also. We're not denying that. But one devotee I meet regularly has this misconception. Okay, I'm not trying to find fault, I hope. I'm just trying to make a point here. This devotee thinks that if somebody is a devotee, is a right consciousness, situated properly, then he should be expert in all material things also. That's how his argument is. Whereas Prabhupada is saying here, in other words, a devotee may not be expert in materialistic activities. That's Prabhupada is clearly describing here. So this devotee's argument was, when a devotee is in higher consciousness, then he has a higher intelligence. So then he has intelligence. Naturally, any circumstance you throw him in compared to any other materialist, because he has higher intelligence, he will deal with that situation better. That was his argument. Of course, I'm not a great devotee to defeat that argument so easily. I could not defeat it, but I'm appreciating Prabhupada's comment here, because this devotee intelligence is for what purpose Krishna is giving? To surrender to Krishna and to help others to surrender to Krishna. That is the main intelligence Krishna is giving, spiritual intelligence. Not how to enjoy this better, how to enjoy that better. That's not what Krishna is giving. But if Krishna wants to give that intelligence, he will give to the devotee also, even material intelligence also. But that is not the main characteristic for a devotee. That we need to understand. That may be there extra, but that's not the main thing. We also see value of a devotee by how much sincerely they're trying to practice Krishna consciousness. Not about how much good they do this, how much good they do that, not like that. Even if they do one service wonderfully, that's it. We appreciate the devotee for that service. But we're appreciating more than the service attitude that they have. Because Krishna sees the service attitude more than the particular service, how I'm doing well. Because Krishna knows our heart. So when we're seeing devotees, we're seeing their qualities to appreciate how they're serving Krishna, how they're surrendering to Krishna, how they're practicing devotion service. That's what we see, and we appreciate their association with that angle. And there we appreciate devotees' realization like that. That's another thing I wanted to highlight here. And then, and devotees should therefore be satisfied to eat whatever is sent as prasada by Supreme Lord. Interestingly, the topic was not about eating, but Prabhupada was saying, is saying eating. So that is one of the primary activities we engage in. So that's why Prabhupada is bringing prasadam is important. That's one aspect, one way to understand it. Second way to understand is, prasada means mercy of Krishna. So whatever we have, we should see that as mercy of Krishna and given by Krishna. Whatever resources we have, whether it's body, this intelligence, this some skill we have, some money we have, some family we have, we see as resources given by Krishna. And then we engage them in Krishna's service. Then that means we are seeing it as Krishna's mercy, prasada. And then eating here is, eating is considered as one of the primary form of enjoyment. So we're trying to utilize anything that's also like eating. So we're utilizing everything by engaging in service of Krishna. That's the other point here. Of course, Prabhupada concludes with, devotee remains pure by not taking up sinful activity. This is a very important thing for us. Practicing our four regulative principles is one of the most essential things, along with positive activity of devotion services, like chanting, hearing, reading, deity worship, like that also. So why this is important? Because like we read in the previous translation, if we are sinful, then we cannot engage in devotion service fully. And we can never come to stage of nishta if we are doing a sinful activity. Because all anadhas are coming from sinful activity also, pious activity also, anadhas come from different sources. So, so basically, it's described, chanting is very potent, highly potent. And chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra is not different from Krishna. But we're not able to see the full effect of chanting. Why? Because the covering that is affecting us, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes in Madhurya Kadamini, mist of ignorance and cloud of anarthas. Those are the two things that are covering us from experience the full effect of the holy name. So mist of ignorance is avidya, that goes away by devotion service. Avidya means not knowing my position as servant of Krishna, as part and parcel of Krishna. That is the main ignorance. So then mist of anarthas. How is the anarthas? How do we get rid of? by working on this no sinful activity, first pillar, first main thing. That's why Prabhupada starts with 4 regulative principles. That's the main thing. Then we don't offend devotees. We don't make offenses in Krishna's service. We don't make offenses in holy name. We don't hurt other devotees. We don't hurt the other living beings. Like that, we can make sure we don't have anarthas. In fact, anarthas also come from pious activities. So when somebody does pious activity, they become proud. In fact, for devotional service also, Madhurika Dambini describes that somebody becomes Labha Puja. Somebody gets some profit out of devotional service or some prestige out of devotional service. They fall down. They are not able to practice. There is an anartha that they have. So we need to be cautious to stay always humble in our devotional service, so that we are not affected by things that come out of devotional service also. Not only sinful activity, but even devotional service also we get some name, fame, prestige. So that also is anartha. And that is covering our full effect that we can experience from holy name and devotional service. So that's why we need to always stay on guard, to be humble and regularly hear every day, regularly chant every day. So that way we can continue remaining pure and also remind ourselves every day that importance of being pure, importance of being in touch with Krishna, importance of taking association of pure devotees, importance of hearing Krishna Kada. Like that we hear regularly. So we'll remember there's every opportunity that we can practice devotional service and we can perfect our life by Krishna's mercy. It's not only by our endeavor we can achieve perfection, but by Krishna's mercy we can achieve perfection for sure. So there's a faith we can develop in association of devotees and scriptures. They give us faith and hope that we can perfect in devotional service soon. Yeah. So I'll pause there for any comments or questions from this section. Please share. Anybody has any comments or questions?
You touched many points about the association. Carefully watching about lusty desires, and then the power of the chanting. So many points. Thank you. You mentioned one thing, that the Karana version is part of spiritual world.
Yeah.
I hear that material world starts from the Karana.
Yeah, it's described. My understanding is in the spiritual sky. Karnadasha Vishnu is in spiritual sky still, and then from his pores, each of the material universe is coming, and then material universe we know. Within material universe we know Garbhadasha Vishnu, Kshirodasha Vishnu, like that. That's my understanding. Anybody knows something different? Please correct me. Yeah. Above the material ocean. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, correct.
Mahavishnu lies down on the Karana.
Correct, yeah.
The Mahavishnu is above the.
Yes.
In that picture comes after Brahmajyoti.
But if you heard something different, please clarify. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand, because in that picture, you see that after Brahmajyoti, Mahavishnu.
Got it. Yeah, where is Viraja River? That is a key aspect in that picture. We can take a look. Viraja River is considered the division between material world and spiritual world. My recollection is that is there below. Yeah, that's my recollection, but we can take a look. Yeah.
In that picture, Mahavishnu is lying down, and different Brahmanda is coming.
Yeah.
This is one of the Brahmanda.
Correct.
So in that Karana also maybe there will be innumerable Brahmanda.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And this is considered spiritual water also. Ganges coming down.
Last time, I think in the Chaitanya Charitamrita class, you told us that the effulgence of Karnataka Sai Vishnu is Brahmajyoti. And also you told us that the Viraja River, the Karana ocean, is touching the feet of Karnataka Sai Vishnu, and it is a spiritual, completely spiritual.
Yeah.
You also told us that Karnataka Sai Vishnu has no material reach. He doesn't even work with material. So he won't, with the glance of his eye, his glance itself, everything will animate. In terms of That's what you explained.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Krishna's effulgence is called Brahman usually, but Krishna and Karnadasa Vishnu in one sense are expansions only. That's correct. Yeah, thank you. I thought you were listening to Office or something like that. I didn't pay attention to you.
Mahavishnu's effulgence is Brahma.
That's why I was trying to correct. Krishna's effulgence is Brahmajyoti. That's what I was correcting him. Yeah. Generally, that's how we hear Krishna's effulgence. Good.
No, Brahmajyoti in Mahavishnu's body.
It may be there. I do not know. He's also Supreme Lord only. Yeah. But generally, what we hear is Krishna's effulgence is how we hear.
So wherever that means Krishna's body, whatever the light is coming, that is Brahmajyoti.
That is Brahmajyoti.
Even the other interaction, other extensions, Narayan, Vasudeva, whenever the light coming, that's all Brahmajyoti.
Okay. I never heard it, but must be. I never heard so far from devotees. That's why I'm not making that conclusion. So it's possible.
Brahmajyoti that generally refers is
Krishna's. Yeah, we heard that statement, but it may be inference may be correct, but unless we hear from devotees, we should not conclude it.
Yeah, because we have seen the picture. Krishna's picture, there is Brahmajyoti. Also, Lord Ram's picture, there is Brahmajyoti.
Yeah.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Brahmajyoti.
Yeah.
Light will be there. The Brahmajyoti that is mentioned in that picture is
Krishna.
mentioned as a race coming from Krishna.
Originally, we come from Krishna.
Yes, yes. And even Vaikuntha planets also effulgent, self-effulgent we hear. Yeah.
The article written by Stephen Knapp. That article, I don't know the initiator name of the Prabhuji.
Satyaraj Prabhu, I think, right? Yeah.
He mentioned that it is effulgence is for Karnadaka Vishnu is Brahmajyoti somewhere in this article.
Okay, got you.
I don't know if I'm correct, but
Sure, that may also be correct, yeah. But Krishna's body also, that predominantly what is described as Krishna's body effulgence is coming, that's Brahmajyoti. But that may also be correct. I do not know. Yeah, makes sense. He's also a Prabhupada disciple only. Must be authentic. Yeah.
I'll forward.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, please forward.
Simple. All the incarnations, Vishnu Tattva,
Vishnu Tattva.
they are Brahma.
Hmm.
Brahma.
Hmm.
Whatever the position is coming, Jyoti coming. Brahma Jyoti.
Makes sense. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Very useful and nice lecture. Started with the introduction, giving the summary that was very helpful. Like Prabhuji mentioned, you touched a lot of points. Yeah, you mentioned about other rivers. They are also holy.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand why Ganga is holy, but why other rivers are holy?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I never heard myself why other whole rivers are evil. I only heard that. Remember, like when we're doing DT worship also, for preparing the Achaman cup, we invite all the holy rivers to come. Gangecha, Yamuna Cheva, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu. We're inviting. So Kaveri, right? Number is Sindhu Kaveri, Jalosmil Saranipur. We're inviting all the holy rivers to, because we want to give purest water to Krishna, holiest water to Krishna, like that. Like that I heard. And even Krishna's pastime with Aristasura before Radha Kunda appeared, we hear Radharani wants him to take bath in all the holy rivers, like that. He takes bath, that much I heard. But I did not know if there is like how Ganges is touching the lotus feet. That's why so powerful. Like that, what is the significance for other holy rivers? I never heard. Anybody else heard?
All the rivers, they have relation with
Pastime with Krishna? Oh, okay.
Like Yamuna,
Okay.
she was the daughter of Kalinga.
Yes.
She came from Kalinga mountain.
Yamaraj's daughter, right? Kalidi.
No, not daughter. Sister.
Sister.
Sister?
She's
Okay.
the
Yeah.
daughter of Surya.
Surya.
They also call Kalinga.
Kalinga. Okay.
She's the daughter that's also called Kalindi.
Ah.
Sister of Rama. So, and Krishna, past time from
Ah.
also Gujarati, Navda. This is past time.
Okay.
Godavari is Ganges.
Yeah.
Godavari is Ganges.
Okay.
Ramachandra.
Yeah.
Now the river also Saraswati. Saraswati is in the Vikasa. Vedavyas used to take bath in that.
Mhm.
Still there.
Okay.
Vikasa, still there.
Maybe the pure devotees go there also to take bath in a holy rivers, holy places.
You've been there to Vikasa?
No.
There is the river Saraswati flows from the mountain, and there is a big mountain and big rock, you know. And people just cross the river in that rock. The rock called Bhimasila. Bhima put that rock there. Because they wanted to cross the river. So they put big Sila there.
Okay.
Because Bhimasila, you walk there, cross the river, and then they go down and take bath. Because you can see the river flowing so much water, but after some distance, the water goes inside. Then after that, you don't see the river.
Oh.
You don't see the river. The water is going there,
Okay. Okay.
and the river is there. The
Oh.
water is going there. Then from, let's say that from there it comes to Prayag.
Nice.
So the Saraswati is there and Nakini is there. Alakananda, Nakini.
Mandakini is the Ganges in the right, but it is named as Mandakini in the lower planets.
Heavenly planets is called Mandakini, right?
Our planet is Alakananda.
Yeah, 4 names it comes. Once it comes on Mount Meru.
Alakananda, river is there.
Nice. Thank you. So basically, Prabhu is saying that some pastimes of Supreme Lord happened there, like that. That's why they're holy. Any other comments or questions?
And you mentioned about prasad, right? Prasadam. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that before eating, we should offer that seeds or whatever we have to lower creatures like birds, something like that. Or without that, we should not consume. If we are like thieves if we don't offer. Like that is my understanding.
Oh, okay.
Like we offer.
What is the question? What is the question? That is the question. Should we do that? Like that is the question.
So that is what Krishna is explaining.
I not remember Bhagavad Gita verse, that section about sacrifice. I believe in 3rd chapter, if I remember correctly, talks about because demigods are supplying all the necessities for us, we need to offer sacrifices like that, sacrifice to them, like that is described. And Prabhupada gets it to higher understanding that we offer our food before eating to Krishna. Then if Krishna is satisfied, all the demigods and everybody is satisfied. So that is how we showing gratitude for whatever we got, like that. So the giving to other living entities is a principle that's also there in Vedic literature. It's a little lower principle, but still in Varnashram Dharma, one of the main duty of a Grihastha is described that after food is cooked, then they need to call out, going out and calling out, anybody hungry, please have food. And after everybody is finished, then only you're supposed to take food, it seems, in Vedic culture. So in that sense, giving it to other lower creatures also makes sense. But there's no verse, I did not remember any verse saying that give it to lower creatures. But as a practice devotees, we offer to Krishna everything we give. Otherwise, Krishna says we are eating sin only, like that. Once we give it to Krishna, because Krishna is satisfied, everybody is satisfied. That's my understanding, Prabhu. Yeah. I don't know if others would like to add anything to this.
Everything we said we cannot.
Yeah.
So you have to understand the summary.
Yeah. But if they
Now nobody is going to call anybody to come. Anybody
Correct.
hungry, there will be so many people hungry. You will be hungry.
Yeah, in US, you go out and eat it.
Yeah. But principles are there. And also another point I heard is that Manusamhita has so many rules as a human being what we need to do. But as devotees, we practice those that are favorable to bhakti, and that is the higher principles. So that will take care of it like that.
So if somebody is chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, they will get purified.
They'll get purified because the holy name of Krishna. But the potency of Hare Krishna Mahamantra at this age is more because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all our acharyas are asking us to do. then we'll get their mercy also. So it's more purifying in that sense. Yeah. Again, yeah, again, it's because his spiritual master gave him that mantra. So spiritual master rules actually. Whatever the spiritual master gives, we follow him, then we get the highest perfection.
In this way, even if somebody is being service group
Yeah,
and now in faith,
probably, yeah. Then you will get purified, yes. Yes. Yeah. I believe Sri Sri, I don't know what mantra they chant. Oh.
I mean, that is also, it's a name, but if they're following their guru, Vallabhacharya,
Makes sense.
who is also Acharya.
So, right. Yeah.
I like the Hare Krishna. I like the point where it's like devotees have Krishna in their heart and they actually act according to Krishna's directions and letting Krishna tells them to do what they want. And so if we surrender to devotees, then we get their blessing by just following their instructions. And Vani Seva is more important, and of course, Vani Seva also is sometimes needed when that's there. More than that, if you hear from the devotees and take no association with the devotees and follow their instructions and just please them and serve them, then we get their direct mercy.
Yeah.
Then we progress nicely.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Nice share. Nice point here. You were saying something, bro? That's good. Okay. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna devotees. Oh, Hare Krishna devotees. Anybody on the phone has any questions or comments? Or? Yeah. Thank you, devotees, for joining on the phone also. Hare Krishna.